Hello and welcome back to episode 9 of the podcast. We've actually got a full house today. We're joined by Stuart, Ross and Rob. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Oh,
Some more enthusiastic than others there. Fantastic. So guys, this is episode 9. We're trying to keep it really consistent in the podcast now that we're back in action on the channel. So this episode, we're not going to give any sort of channel updates for the year ahead. We're going to talk about something more specific. So I'm sure you've all kind of heard from the title. It's discussing removing the random from the game. This is a topic that I know a lot of players have probably discussed over the recent editions. Certain things have been removed, certain things have been added, and we kind of want to give our little spin on the randomness in 40k. And I guess it can be applied to other hobbies as well that have maybe evolved their tabletop game. But so that'll be what we're gonna discuss mainly today. We'll also have other topics, just keeping up to date with the hobby updates and news since the last podcast. So a weekly update will be on there as well, and then just some light-hearted chat to round off the podcast. But Stuart, you missed the last podcast, so I just want to say welcome back. I think you've been off the podcast. Yeah, you are alive and living, so fantastic. House rules, guys. Keep it PC. We don't want any spicy words in the chat or anything like that, but please use the chat, put all your questions on there, anything you want to ask us as we go through the podcast today, and we'll try and get to them as quick as we can. Our resident sort of chat moderator, Ross, as you can probably see on the chat, will be our keyboard warrior for the night. So for those who want to ask Ross any personalised questions, just put it in the chat because he'll be looking at it.
Don't ask me personalised questions. That's any questions to do with the hobby, not is Ultramarines a spicy word? Yes, it is. David will go off his head if you bring up Ultramarines.
Apparently, Custodes is getting there too. So, guys, let's crack on. We've got a lot to discuss because I think this topic, removing random from the game, I think there's probably never been a bigger change in randomness in the tabletop since the transition, probably from 7th to 8th, and then even more from 8th to 9th. So I guess the first sort of question I want to kind of just put around the table is, do you like random events in the game? Do you like that sort of who knows what's going to come next? I'm going to hand over to Ross. Obviously, I think you may have been playing this more than sort of some other people have, but random dice rolls, what's your thoughts? Like it, don't like it? And I'm talking about scatter dice in particular here.
Well, when it comes to this removing the random from the game, the first thing to acknowledge is we are in a dice-based game, so there is random to it, obviously. But as the additions have gone on, certainly since the transition from 8th to 9th, there was a big transition from, a lot of elements of random in it to a lot more certainty with your forces. So the prime examples obviously being scatter and, blast templates, ordnance templates. And then you've obviously got scatter when you deep strike. Now, obviously in 8th, you had, those sort of times where, you might be deep striking in and you wildly veer off. You don't know, you could land right beside your opponent, hope you get a direct hit. You might scatter on top of them and suffer horrific damage. You might scatter far away. These random rolls really brought a lot of element of surprise and clutch to the game. You didn't know what was going to happen. There was no way for you to prepare for it. How much were you willing to gamble? Same goes with ordnance, scar dice, etc. Now, when it comes to these two elements, specifically the scattering and stuff, I personally liked it. I thought it was very good. I like it when random events happen in the game because it's things, and I'll explain why some people might not like them in a minute. But I loved them because it'd be those moments more than anything. You go, oh, wow, I remember when that happened. And absolutely, either the game could have been decided by that, but it was just a luck of the draw. You made a decision in that moment, and the dice favoured you. And I just loved that element of random, specifically with scatter, because there was huge risk in that, and there was a lot of things to demand from it. Equally now, the difference I'd say now is that obviously you now have Deep Strike, which we know is roughly going to be 9 inches away. I mean, I can't imagine anyone particularly being further away than that, because that seems a bit odd unless they're shooting, or, for instance, if they have a special rule. So there's not much element of risk to that. And then also when it comes to ordnance, it's gone. It's now rolling d6. The advantages of that is that I'd probably say you play your army more. And what I mean by that is that you can go, right, I want to take artillery. I know it's doing D6 attacks. It's doing 2D6 attacks. I don't need to bet on scatter randomness. And it just kind of makes you go, wow, that, gives you a bit more dependability. So I know people who want to win the game by making the best list, and they want to win with that. That's kind of an advantage, because you don't have random events that cause a problem. I know in other card-based games, specifically another one, I won't mention company names, but a specific one that a lot of people had a problem with, that competitive playing was impossible because the game was so random. And so maybe competitively, removing the randomness has actually been a benefit.
What game are you referring to? Was it Shake the Magic 8 Ball? Okay, Hearthstone, right, okay.
Hearthstone has had I've read many an article recently on sort of how competitive problems are made from it, because they just can't gauge the randomness of it. It makes competitive. There is competitive side to it, but a lot of competitive people complain that just sometimes one person will play a card and the game is over. There's no strategy or thought to it. It's just been the case that they've lost, and that's due to a random event. And that's not ideal. The other element of random that I really don't like at the moment, this is a recent change from to the recent edition, is that we don't have, is the mission objectives. They are very preset before the game. I liked drawing cards mid-game, and that would be my objectives. There could be games you had no chance in, zero chance at all of winning, because the cards were so bad. Games where everything comes up right. And sometimes you'd feel bad for it, sometimes you'd feel good for it. But it was those things that changed the element, changed the drama of the game. Now I feel everything's sort of predestined in terms of, I know what my strategy is for my particular army just about every game I go into. And that's made me feel a bit dull in a way. There is no sort of drama in the middle of what could the cards be or anything like that. And I'm sort of missing that. But that's not to say the missions are bad, because I feel that they've improved in terms of, making the mid of the board very important, making objectives very important. I think there's a huge improvement on that. I would have still liked cards.
So Ross,
I'll really liked it.
I'll ask you to save your thoughts on the cards, because we'll come to that in more detail.
Sure.
We'll come into the breakdown of the certain random things, but back to the question about scatter dice. You kind of touched on, the whole element of deep striking and stuff like that. Is that something that you actually enjoyed during the earlier editions in particular? Did you like the idea of bringing your guys in, rolling a dice, and leaving it to chance to see where they land? Or do you prefer the new sort of just place them 9 inches away?
Absolutely preferred it, because it was just not the same thing over and over again. What I mean by that is, you have a set amount of attacks, you determine them by a dice, and then roll them to see if you hit. It was a different way to hit. Where that template landed was the amount of hits. It just creates a bit of variety.
Okay.
The problem with it is the amount of fighting that could happen with scatter dice. And I mean, I wouldn't put it down that friendships have been ended because people just disagree over half an inch over where a template lands.
I can guarantee friendships are ended. I'm sure I lost one because of it.
Guarantee it. And so it's, there's elements to, and also it slows down the speed of the game massively, having ordnance and then fighting for 5 minutes about the direction of which an ordnance. It slows down the game massively versus going, I'm going to get, my Leman Russ battle tank gets D6 or 2D6 shots with its battle cannon. It speeds up the game. It makes you have more control over your army. And that, I suppose, is a good thing. But It's just that element of random I'm kind of missing.
All valid points, Sir Ross. Loving it. Okay, I'm actually going to move on to Stuart, because obviously yourself, you've kind of been, as we've mentioned a few times, getting newly introduced back into the hobby. But you did kind of do a bit of 7th edition, not for the channel, but just for fun. And you had those scatter dice. Remember the green templates and things like that.
I remember. I missed the green flamer template as well. I thought that all looked so cool. But I mean, I like the randomness of it. I used to question it sometimes about it. I remember there was the rule. Was it when you deep strike, if you hit a building, you pretty much your whole part, the squad was gone, because if they just
the mishap table and things.
Yeah, I was like, just like it is a gamble. But if you're setting them somewhere close, you're taking the gamble of the scatter, whether or not they're going to survive it or not, and all these different things. But I think it was more the blast. The blast template I really liked. I thought was really cool, and it's like Ross said, it's like you could end friendships just by a millimeter of the model, maybe not in the template because your hand's shaking and they're getting annoyed at you because you're putting it in the template and stuff. But I mean, like, I liked it because I think I remember years ago. What was it? I remember someone was playing an Astronaut Tower Army and they were using artillery, but they had a ton of it. So like the scatter, I was like, I can totally understand because it's artillery, it's long range. You're not meant to get an accurate hit, and it's just have enough of them to get at least a good round hit. And I thought that's pretty cool. But for like certain other things, I think it's for the battle sorry, the battle cannon for the Lehman Russ. Like you still had to throw a scatter for the shot, which I thought didn't make a lot of sense in a weird way because I was sort of like this is an accurate shot it should hit, and it's just how much is in the blast. That's all I've seen it as. I mean, yeah, I always kind of liked some of the randomness just because it gave it a bit of a gamble, and you became a bit more strategic of where you want to. Again, like you're saying, also like it goes a bit slower because you're trying to determine who how far they went, who's scattered, what's been hit under the template, and all this other stuff. But yeah, I just kind of liked some of it. You were just a bit more reserved in where you wanted to place your troops because you're hoping you didn't kill them by hitting a building or crushing into other people and things like that.
Okay, fair enough. All valid. The Flamer templates I'm just going to touch on. I definitely feel I'd love to have that back. It kind of brought a bit of realness to the table rather than just rolling dice. You felt like you're slightly more involved. But yeah, so Rob, I think definitely the more seasoned player out of all of us. You've definitely.
What are you gonna say?
I'm not going to say in ages, but just saying, you're obviously definitely more seasoned player out of all of us and more experience with this sort of game. Really keen to hear your thoughts because you've obviously been through a lot more editions, so there's been more evolution to the randomness probably in the game that you've had a chance to experience. What's your thoughts on it?
Oh yes, the randomness. So I remember way back when, whereby the randomness on vehicles of actually breaking armor was entertaining, to put it the last, because it was like roll a d8, add d10, add this, add that.
You've lost me, Rob. What?
Yeah,
I thought there was only d6s we were allowed to use in this game.
No, way back when it was you roll this, add 4, add 6, roll a d10, d20, and all that lot. And yeah, it was complicated, but it was good fun though, because you could like a las cannon itself is like armor 14 for instance, and you'd have so you roll a d6, d8, add 4 or something like that, if I can remember rightly. So, and you have to actually physically beat 14 before you can actually do a wound, which made vehicles really, really good.
It makes them a lot tougher than what they currently are now, I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, you only had like 3 wounds on the vehicle, but at that time, it was difficult to break through those vehicles. So yeah, I've seen quite a bit of evolution in relation to the randomness on vehicles for like armor pen. I say is you don't just get a las cannon now and go one shot of that vehicle's 90% dead. But yeah, so I do miss the randomization for sort of deep strike and all that. Like, it was always a risk to do deep strike, which made it even more fun.
But the reward was great if you achieved it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's either do or die, getting it right into the corner near a building, or suffer the consequences and have 90% of your team get caught into a concrete wall or something and kill themselves. So it was high risk, high reward if it went right. Do miss that because like I said, I used to play Tau Farsight Enclave with all battle suits and all that sort of thing.
You'd be deep striking for days.
Oh yes, very much so. But at the same time, it's a lot more subtle now. You don't see that much on the deep strike front because of all the missions that we've got, etc., etc. But I can see it exploding more, especially in the tournament scene coming up, because of how the missions are set up with like engaging all fronts, table quarters, take this, take that, take the other. So I can see it moving more to deep striking or more to physical units that can come underground,
Okay.
deploy. So yeah, it's I do like it as it is at the moment, but I think it will change the game quite considerably.
Just want to touch on a point that one of the viewers commented on. I actually quite like this. Fluff, Crunch, and Mini. First of all, what an incredible name.
Awesome.
The removal of random appears correlated to competitive play and the aggressive feedback loop. That in turn removes the fun for those who don't play to win, but who have used the rules to tell stories. And I think that's a really good point. The randomness, I think Ross, you definitely touched on this in your point. The randomness does slightly slow down the game a bit. It speeds it up when you don't really have all those extra dice rolls and you're trying to judge those millimeters. But it certainly did help to tell a narrative, I felt, in the game, and it kept you more involved in the game. And that leads right on to kind of my opinions on the removal of random. Who here remembers, or does the name ring a bell? And certainly in the comments, point if you remember this, Skyhammer Annihilation Force.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So I remember.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. So that was. So Skyhammer Annihilation Force, for those who weren't aware or don't know what it is, it was essentially a simple formation that you could do in 7th edition, and essentially it composed of, I think it was, you had to have 2 Devastator squads, 2 Assault Marine squads, and 2 drop pods. And basically you put your 2 Devastator squads in the 2 drop pods, and you put your 2 Assault Marines in Deepstrike, and you drop that entire formation onto the board. Now it could either go incredibly well, because you've got all your guys scattering in and then can charge and do crazy stuff, or you could load your Devastators with really heavy bolters and heavy flamers and stuff, or it could go really bad and you could just end up making half your army red paint stains on walls. But I remember that was a lot of fun. You geared your list towards making that sort of thing work. So as much as your lists were predetermined, because you knew you were going to be gearing around the Skyhammer Annihilation Force, there was always that chance that it was just going to go horribly wrong with a dice roll. Horribly wrong.
They had drop pods, so it wasn't the most dangerous, because drop pods made it safe.
They made it safe, but I'm still talking about
those Assault Marines.
Those Assault Marines. But it's an element where I think having that chance works really nicely. And I'm going to be repeating a lot of comments that all three of you have just said there, but the randomness certainly adds to the narrative. The one thing, though, I think maybe could be good to bring back is templates. Maybe not all the templates, because I remember an in particular game I played with you, Ross, where I used the Tau North Supremacy suit. And
Was
I
that
think
the Forge World one?
The Forge World one, yes. And I think
about 2,000 points back in the day.
The one that looks like a small child in size and stature.
Stick on the field.
Just doing Gundam cosplay or something like that. But I remember the template you had to use for that thing was just such a pain trying to work out who was hit, because it was humongous. And if you didn't own it,
like the Armageddon template it was called?
Yeah, it was. It had like a giant circle and then 4 small circles in the corners. It was crazy. But I remember the day we played that, we didn't own that template, and we had to sort of judge with all the mini templates we owned, and my word, did it take forever. Now that's the thing I don't like, because you kind of remove yourself from the game a bit, and you just become someone that's just playing a rule set. You lose yourself and the immersion's gone. So I think bringing back templates could be a really fun idea, just in a small controlled sort of way. So things like, Stuart, you mentioned flamer templates. Why not? They were great fun. Absolutely great fun. And you'd always be nervous, was that unit going to get within flamer range? You know, you wouldn't exactly get a measuring tape out and do it. You just hope that template couldn't reach. Maybe the small blast templates as well. I'll move on, because this is something Ross was going into quite deeply, and I thought it deserves its own sort of discussion around the table. The tactical objective cards.
Love them.
Interesting enough, it's something I actually didn't enjoy when they were first introduced. I didn't like it, but I was very much I'd rather just kill things and win by you having less models than me.
Yep.
But then I started to grow into tactical objectives, and I started to grow into tactical objectives probably towards the very end. I was quite late to the party for tactical objectives, but I find myself missing them. I really, really do. Stuart, obviously you're again just done a couple of 9th edition games that are no longer in the game. But 8th edition, when you came back to the channel, there was that sort of a couple of games with them. Do you like the idea of tactical objective cards being in the game? You know, determining by fate your chances of scoring points.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think it just depends on what you're trying to play, really. Because it's like you're saying, like sometimes the cards can because there were some of them where basically it was just draw the cards and hope that you get the ones that you want, sort of thing. So there is that certain bit of randomness. So you've got to adjust to what you've been playing when you start the game, which is still pretty cool. But I mean, me and you, Pierce, when we used to play was it 7th edition, 8th edition, and
just for those
trying to annihilate.
Sorry, Stuart. Just for those who don't. Sure, just for those who don't know me, Pierce is what they call me not in the channel, but Pierce is me, right? Just so those who are listening going, who's Pierce? Cool.
I'm just because I'm going back to nostalgia moments of me and you playing, and it was just I'm just gonna kill David, and then David would go, you do know you've just won because of the points, and you're meant to hold these objectives, and you've just accidentally done it.
Thank you for telling me that's how you play. Just want to kill David. Thank you, Stuart. But no, you're totally right. You then I remember that game. You realised you'd won just by the tactical objectives.
Yeah, I do like the cards. I think they can be good sometimes, and then it's just I'm pretty much just sitting on the balance here and just kind of teetering between both yes and no of it. I do like them for certain times, and there's other times you're just I'd really just not really want to deal with them.
Yeah.
Just to jump on something you said there, Stuart, you mentioned you just wanted to absolutely destroy David in some games. To be fair, I think everyone might have an opponent like that where you play against them, you might just see red and all tactics go out the window. For me, I don't know if he's in the chat, I don't think he is at the moment. It's Duke, played him a few times, and he knows it, and each other of us, our eyes just go red. We've played games where it's 6 of us playing, and we both beeline for each other. 3 versus 3, and we're just now we're taking each other out. I miss playing them. I need to play, once things maybe calm down in the world, I'll need to make sure that we get a game.
I'm sure Duke will always be happy to come back, especially to play you, Ross. 100%.
Absolutely. Considering how much I destroyed him last time, he's dying for a bit of revenge.
Well, if he watches the replay, the comment section's about to go nuts with him. So I think there's a tally between you two. I don't know what the score is, but
I won't say.
So yeah, okay. Rob, what about yourself? Tactical objectives? You a fan? Do you want to see them back, or do you think it just added more time and planning to the game?
No, I did like them. I mean, when they first came out, it was everybody going, "What do we do with these?" It was a moot subject to start off with, and then I said, as soon as the factions started getting their own cards and it started to be personalised to you. I mean, I remember the game that me and you had, Dave, in relation to Harlequins and Thousand Sons.
Yes, that was a great game.
I mean, that was like a secret game. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it because it was a close game in the end. But
very close.
But it was with you just getting 2 cards and scoring 8 points from those 2 cards just by sheer luck of drawing them at the same time.
Yeah, I think you would have won that game if it wasn't for that one draw, though, Rob. You definitely had it in the bag.
Yeah, but it's stuff like that just sort of spoiled it. Not necessarily spoil it, but it was if you get a luck of the draw. You really do get a luck of the draw, and you can run away with the points. But I do miss them because we played them for so long, and not having any of them whatsoever now. It feels like there's a gap, and I think that's where the secondary missions are coming into it. Is trying to fill that gap in the game, to actually physically play, to put some different elements to it. So. It'd be nice to use them again, but it's not a showstopper.
I think that's a great point. You're right. Secondary objectives is probably maybe what the closest replacement to tactical objective cards was. That's probably the thinking behind it. The only difference is, I guess, you can pre-plan your secondary objectives. You can sort of gear your playstyle towards achieving them throughout the game, as opposed to the random ones. But fair enough. Ross, I believe you had some stuff you wanted to say about it as well before I cut you off at the start, so apologies. What's your thoughts on the tactical objective card situation?
So I absolutely loved them. I absolutely loved them. It was just, being able to have these objectives that suddenly appear. It would change your game plans suddenly. Sometimes you'd have to ignore them. Sometimes you'd have to go with them. You'd have to debate whether to go for damage or points. And the thing I feel is that 8th never managed to get that balance. Usually in 8th, sometimes it was just worth going for damage because points never escalated. And I feel that's the strength of 9th. That points really did escalate. Like in 8th, basically, you never scored much more than 20 points. So sometimes you could eliminate your opponent, then later on just score some points, and you'd probably win up. But now, because if you play for points early and you can absolutely rock it with points early on, people need to think between damage and points. I'd say if I was to go back to cards in a way, I'd almost say, have them introduced almost like secondary objectives. Make it so that you can only achieve like 15 points worth of, like, you can draw like 3 cards maybe or something, and you can only score up to 15 points from those secondary objectives. Something like that, where, I don't know, you have your main objectives that you gain from playing the field, and then you can maybe have, 1 or 2 secondary objectives, then you have 1 or 2 drawn objectives. And I don't think that would be, some people might say that's too many objectives jumping around the place. And I'd almost say not really, because, going on objectives, that's kind of always, that's easy to remember. And then having your predetermined ones is also very easy to remember. It's just adding this one little bit of random that you can maybe score an extra 10, 15 points that might make a bit of a difference a turn. And I think that'd be quite nice. Just to add something, it doesn't need to replace anything.
Yeah.
Just maybe add it in just as a slight extra factor. And make different missions for it might be quite nice.
So, perfectly good. There's a wee comment that's came in, I think is actually quite interesting, because I'm not too familiar with the apocalypse rules for 40k, right? Not too familiar how the playstyle works, but I know, Ross, you've looked at it a few times, and maybe Rob, you've been involved in it. But there's a comment from 2 Skill for Cool. It's probably the first non-Ultramarines comment I've seen from him in a while, so it's great to read this. Wow. Yeah, I'd like to see a 2K game.
Just give it a chance. Just give it a chance.
I'd like to see a 2K game of regular 40k played using the everyone shoots at the same time mechanic. Would really be interesting to see how that affects the gameplay. I guess that is in a form of randomness, but yeah, how would that affect? Or even there's a certain thing that triggers that in the 40k game. Rob, Ross, what's your thoughts on that?
I'll go first on this one. I don't know the Apocalypse rules too much, because obviously the amount of games we play a year is now, obviously in the past year we haven't played so many, but when Apocalypse came out we played a lot of games, so it's hard to fit in Apocalypse, considering some games I've played of Apocalypse lasted 20 plus hours, and it involves a lot of models and sometimes a lot of players. But the way I thought, if I remember how the Apocalypse, when they reintroduced it into 9th, was very different to the rules. Similar to Kill Team, the rules were very different from the main 40k rules. But the thing that a lot of people were interested in is that you almost did various parts of your actions at the same time, if not all the damage. Like you left wound counters, I believe, on your models, and then at the end of the turn, you then work out how much wounds they've actually suffered. This allows you to do your, I think, shooting and combat almost simultaneously, so you can't nuke Magnus straight off the field. I mean, this is a podcast in itself. You can't nuke Magnus or Mortarion off the field because you don't know if you've killed them. You do all your shooting attacks and they haven't actually suffered the damage yet. And then your opponent at the end, I believe, of the turn, and I'm using this loosely, I've not played Apocalypse in this edition, works out the damage. So you'd be like, I know Mortarion has, let's say, 18 wounds. I'm going to put, I know I've inflicted 30 wounds on him, but how many is he going to save? Could he save, 10 of those wounds, he's still killed. What if he saves 20? Then he's still alive. It forces you to maybe oversaturate into your opponent, rather than if you just destroy Magnus, you go, right, I've destroyed him with like directly, I'll move on with the next firepower. It's very interesting.
Okay. Do you think it would actually potentially be trialable in 40k? It could be something maybe you might see in future editions. That sort of everyone goes.
Seen people do it. I've seen people do it in games. The problem is you throw away a lot of the current rules. You can't really use your codex. You lose out on a lot of stratagems. It is a different game in its entirety. Almost, you just play it on a smaller scale. Like, it's designed for big games, but there is elements that you can reduce it to a bit of a smaller battle, regular battle. I don't know how well it works, but the detail you get from the the codexes, you don't get that in Apocalypse, and you can't really use your codex.
Right, okay, fair enough then. So it might need to be ported, but maybe something to look out for. I do know you've probably seen in a lot of the editions as they've evolved, there's certain tropes that have been taken from things like Kill Team. There's certainly elements there that have moved into 40k. So you never know. You just don't know. It depends how the feedback goes. Rob, are you familiar with this at all in the Apocalypse rules? I don't know if you've had a chance to even look at Apocalypse.
I've not had a chance in 9th or 8th, to be honest, because all I was doing in 8th was playing you guys and doing tournaments, so not really had much chance on APOC. I mean, I did it when it's back in 7th and 6th and that lot with friends back down south and that. Yeah, it was all right. It was a different kettle of fish for APOC games and that lot. So it was a completely different style, setup, and all that lot. And it was a good game, but I think APOC needs to be run as completely separate to 40k at the moment.
Okay.
I'm going to get some horrible comments come back from me from that. But
not at all.
It's because of the sheer amount of stuff you need to do in the game itself. And that size, you'll get people that get completely, completely and utterly confused, lost track. They'll start losing interest because if you're doing what you're doing in 40k twice over for the sheer size of the game, it could start losing the interest. So they do. It does need to stay as it is.
Okay, fair enough.
So. Yeah.
Valid points. Well, I've got one last question on removing the randomness for the game, and really quick, does not need much of an answer, but going forward, first part of the question, would you like to see randomness back in? I think we've all kind of answered that, but let's just confirm it. And what element of randomness of the game would you like to see? Either something that's been done before, or would you like maybe something new to come in? Ross, what's your thoughts?
When it says new, I really couldn't tell you when it comes to new. That's going to come directly down to the idea that they produce or whoever produces. If it's a good idea, I'd love to see it added. If it's a bad one, it's a bad one. If I wanted to add anything, it would certainly be to the missions. I can live without ordnance templates, etc. To me, it's just making the missions and the mid-game just vary up a wee bit. Because at the moment, I'm feeling... if I go into a game, I kind of already know how I'm going to play it, and not very much is going to change. Once I see my opponent's list, I know how I'm going to play this game, and not as much changes. Things can change, obviously, if certain units die, etc. But when you have that element of, well, you could score 15 points by this shenanigans of a card that suddenly appeared, then it might swerve my decision mid-game. I just don't have major moments of decision swerves in the game, and I feel introducing that into missions would certainly add to that.
Excellent. I do like it. I think I kind of fully agree. I'd like to see that because my list as well, when you play your game, there's nothing really changing the way you play or making you adapt mid-game. Stuart, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they should put randomness back into the game. I'm always for the templates. I loved those templates. Just there's that sense of involvement, putting it over units to you're doing it. And like even with the flamer one, I mean, okay, everyone's admittedly done a wee flamer noise when they put that at the end of the flamer. You can't say no to that. You all have, even in your own head, you've done it. Like there was just such a cool involvement with them all. I never really used the big apocalypse template, but I've always wanted to try. I've always wanted to. And I thought that looked really cool. But yeah, templates I definitely bring them back in some way. I know for certain weapons for and things it can maybe pigeonhole it because it's a definitive size. You can't really adjust it like now. It's like it's depending on how many inches of the blast radius you have for your tape measure. They can really change it up. But when you're using the templates, it is pretty much you're pigeonholing it to those templates. But I would definitely bring the templates back. The scatter dice, I would like to see it come back, but in a way, like David, if you remember when we used to put before the channel, remember we used to play it was and put tactical objectives down. We used to put them down in a position, and we had to roll the scatter dice and 2 dice with it and see what way it would go.
Yep.
So like I ran just a total element of randomness of where everything would go in it.
Well, fair enough. There's certainly one thing I'm going to take from your comments there, Stuart. I'm going to make you a soundboard of noises of gunfires that is going to be you making noises. I'm going to record them now. You making flamer noises and gun noises. And I'm going to put them in the battle reports.
No.
That'll be a Stuart special battle report. No, thanks, Stuart. Okay. Rob, on to you.
Yeah, I do want some more randomness in secondary missions because totally agree with Ross. Is as soon as you start playing against certain armies time and time again, you know for definite what they're going to take or what they're going to play. So the only difference on the game is where the objective marker is going to be. And that is the only difference that you're going to find. So you guarantee you'll find on a Space Marine player he'll take X, Y, and Z. Admech player will take X, Y, and Z. And it does make the games very samey. So like if you go into a tournament and you play against 5 Marine players, one after another, and it does happen, you'll play the same game 5 times. Even though it'll be different people,
that's fair.
Different chapters, it will be the same game 5 times, and it will start getting monotonous more than anything. So just change it ever so slightly. Winner, chicken dinner. We'll be all good.
Well, I've actually got something I would like to add to the game that none of you have suggested. I say it's something new, but I actually know it's not new. It's been done before in campaign books, but it's certainly never been done as part of the core rule set. At least not to my knowledge or since I've been playing the game. Maybe 3rd edition prior, possibly, I'm not aware. I would love to see battle environment rules. Not terrain rules, but environmental rules.
That has been done before.
I know it's been done in campaign books, like the Wrath of Magnus books and stuff, but I mean like the core rules, has it been in the core rules before?
I think they introduced a lot of it, strangely enough, at the very end of 8th. Was that not in Pariah?
Yeah, but I'm saying these are like they're not core rules, or they're supplements, if you get me.
Yeah, they are supplements. I think they are going to be in supplements. I think, I mean, they struggled so much with the transition from 7th to 8th in terrain that terrain was largely ignored in 8th.
Very true.
They now need to focus a lot on terrain in 9th edition. That to then add on another terrain element, which is the battlefield, might have been a bit too much, possibly.
Well, it reminds me very much. The idea I'm trying to kind of steal it from was, if any of you remember, in 7th and 6th edition, you had the Warp Storm rules if you're a Demons player.
Yep.
And you'd obviously roll dice and determine across the table what effects were happening in the battlefield. Some of those could be fantastic. Some of those could be absolutely terrible. They could either benefit your army or go against your army. These are things which I would love to see back. Actually, a phenomenal comment just came in there from Nurgle's Chosen. Fully agree. Guys, night fighting.
Oh.
That'll be from Rusty. Yeah. Night fighting was...
I used to love night fighting.
Yeah, we know you loved it.
Yeah,
I played Dark Elder and we just ignored it, so none of that.
But no, like these are like battlefield elemental rules. I think could be really good, and I'm not saying it's predetermined elemental rules. It's like you roll for it. There's a sandstorm. There's something that happens each turn. I'm not saying it's like a catastrophic thing, but it just adds that sort of element where you can't plan for, because you need to roll for it.
Just spices it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's really all you need. You've got people that put so much effort in like detail into their table designs. Like you've got snow design tables, desert design tables. Well, you maybe even create dedicated random tables for set, map types. Just these sorts of things could be cool.
There was, if I remember correctly, it was the cityscape rules and all that lot.
Yes, uh-huh.
So you used to play in a glorified city. And that was quite cool.
Yeah. Something to think about. I know it's been tried and tested in supplements, but maybe a core rule set could be good. But Ross, also, you're really right in what you're saying. They focus really heavily on terrain, and terrain is quite a lot to take in now. Especially if you don't play it week in, week out, it's a lot to kind of follow, and then to add another set of rules on top of it could be challenging when we're trying to simplify the game. But it's just something that I think could be a nice wee addition. Alright, well, we're going to move on, guys. We've got more topics to discuss today. We're going to move on to our sort of weekly roundup. Now, guys, I hope you've all got your phones or your sort of tablets or whatever ready. I'm going to link you something. So this is just me wanting to chat about some of the articles that have came out on the community sites.
I presume when you say tablets things, you mean us, like not the chat. No, you're not going to send something.
Everyone, lend me your tablets and phone. No, of course I meant the people in the chat.
Right, okay.
No, I mean you guys in the chat. So this is the first thing that I thought would be really interesting to talk about, and it's not to do with rules or anything. It's just really simply how beautiful do these models look, and it's nice to see an army of the Night Lords get some love.
I've got the Primarch in the box, ready to... Conrad, yes. Conrad.
So what we're looking at, you've sent us, is the Terminator.
So yeah,
Terminator.
Yeah, so I'll finish explaining first of all. So for those who want to see what we're looking at, this is the 12th of January. There was an article. It's titled "Meet the Night Lords that give the rest of the Legion nightmares." So this is the new Night Lord Terminator unit. Night Lords is an army I've seen in a lot of forums that people believe hasn't had too much love. Especially in 40k.
I love them to bits.
Yeah, but if you can, if you're listening just now, take a quick gander at these models. But guys, what do you think of the design? Yay or nay? Too much or not enough?
No, it's about right. They are supposed to be there, frightening, and the way that it's the stature, the blades, the weaponry, how they've got like flesh hanging from the torsos, the colouring, it just works so well. And like the two Praetors that you can get, the Terminator Praetor and the Power Armor, absolutely stunning.
I got the Power Armor one for
I hate you.
The one with the massive, like, I could be wrong, the one with the massive chain sword. Yeah, we've got that for Chaos because it's such a cool model. So I use that as a jump pack lord in Chaos Space Marines with like a Thunder Hammer, but it's just such a good model.
Yeah, it is. It is so beautiful. The sculpt is just stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to Conrad's a couple of years ago, and Pix got me the Conrad's model itself. And I've not yet touched it because I've been busy doing Necrons and Gene Stealer cards, etc. But it's going to be a model that I will actually enjoy to paint, but potentially get a Chaos Force to use on the channel more than anything.
Well, everyone loves an army of Chaos Batman,
But it's one army that I haven't actually got is a Chaos army, so it could be on the books.
There's always time to fall to heresy. Of course,
I was literally about the same thing. I was like, "There's literally time to fall."
Yeah, you can join me and Ross. It's great on our side, man. We have way more fun.
Yeah, but I because of on a lot of the narrative for Night Lords is they are slightly larger than a normal Chaos Marine is actually use Primaris and
Oh,
make him heresy.
okay, nice idea. All right, well, guys, I think the model looks brilliant. Stuart, I don't know about yourself. Does it look heretical enough for you?
Just slavering all over it. That's pretty much what I'm doing.
All right, okay, let's move on quickly. Right.
I'm just amazed by that. I'm just amazed of like the times when we first started Warhammer, of like how the models looked, and then to how they are now, and just the level of detail you can get into a model is just nuts.
Yeah, they've done really, really well, I think, with this cast in particular. I think it's good to see Night Lords get some love, and really to get such an iconic Terminator unit. They look fantastic. On to the next sort of weekly update. Now again, we're not going to cover every weekly update, but we got a sort of snapshot. I've sent you the link, guys. So this was on the 11th of January. It was titled on the community website, "The Emperor's Spears got official new lore and rules." Now, Stuart, I know you're reading a lot of the Horus Heresy books, but I don't think you've probably came across the Emperor's Spears books.
Not yet, no.
Yeah. So forgive me for touching this topic, but guys, if you look in the article, there was a really interesting part down the bottom, which was the Codex supplement rules, and essentially it gave the chapter tactic. Now, I guess this is a sort of familiar launch to when Bloodravens came out. They sort of gave them like their own chapter tactic, and they kind of build it around from there. Although they did release, was it Gabriel Angelos, I believe? Yeah, the man himself. I don't know if Emperor's Spears are getting a unique model. I've maybe missed that boat by now, or I've not seen it. But so I'll read out the rule for you guys. It's titled "Redden the Earth." So you add 1 to the advance rolls and charge rolls made for units with this tactic. Each time a model with this tactic makes a melee attack, if that model's unit made a charge move, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention this turn, an unmodified roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit.
No.
What's your thoughts on that, Rob? Good, bad, basic?
Yeah, that is a nice one. But it then pigeonholes the army to be a close combat army, which, if you wanted to do that, you would go down Blood Angel route, which is your higher ends, close combat, slappoo, there's a chainsaw to death. But as a different style to it, yeah, ideal. I like it. It's different.
Okay. Ross, what about yourself? You're quite into your combat armies at the moment in 9th. What do you think of it?
So this is towards the Emperor's Spears. In all honesty, I haven't had a look. I'm just replying to one of the chats at the moment.
Okay, tell me.
Emperor's Spears, I know it's got the same part as Blood Angels at the start. Yeah, advance and charge rolls, and then scores an additional hit. It's fine. It's a different. So it's similar to the ideology of very much in Blood Angels, but also in terms of Space Wolves, where Space Wolves I think got the +1 to hit. Blood Angels got the +1 to wounds when they charge. This one is gets an extra hit when they score a 6. It's not bad. When it comes to these Legion tactics, Space Marines just have so many in terms of all their Legion traits and all their successor ones in terms of the custom ones they make. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this was not already something you could make in the successor chapters. Probably not, because otherwise they wouldn't have made it very, very specific. But it's fine. The advantage of it is that it's 2 rules, 2 advantages that you will almost always benefit from, because they're both geared to the assault phase, which is good. And that's ultimately, it plays not bad.
Okay, interesting. Okay, perfect. Stuart, I know you're still trying to find your foot with 9th edition, but do you feel that's a sort of rule you'd like?
I do like it. I think it's pretty cool. Black Templars could get that rule as well.
Yeah, it's a lot better than Black Templars, I think.
Yeah, if you right in the air, Black Templars could get that. No bother, just give it to them as well. But yeah, I think it's really good. Unmodified hit roll is 6 with that plus an additional hit for it. I just think that's good all round. It's really good, and just +1 to your advance rolls and charge rolls. I mean, you can't really complain about it, really, can you?
Yeah, we can, but we're not going to.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, I think if you're certainly going to go combat, it's the way forward. It's actually going to benefit your arm quite well. Especially if you're going to go Primaris, then any of these extra additional hits is going to take you far, because Primaris already deal a lot of hits, an absolute ton of hits. Okay. The next update is actually just for you, Ross. And we're allowed to say this. We're not going to reveal anything But there is a preview coming on Saturday for a review of the Death Guard Codex that we'll be releasing on the channel on Saturday. But they released on the community, which was on the 14th of January, so luckily today. Make your plague weapons even more deadly with the Lord of Virulence. So, have you had a chance yet to have a look at the Lord of Virulence? Don't give away any full review. Just wanted to know if this is something you think is a good, nice wee addition. Because I'm assuming it's new, Ross.
Yes, it is new. This is the new model for it. So, do you want my view in terms of what I've seen, or what I've seen in the preview here?
Give us just a preview here, Ross.
Right, just the preview here. It's very underwhelming. So from the two rules that you've got here, in terms of what you've got is, a friendly plague company core unit within 6 inches. Each time module that makes a ranged weapon with a plague weapon on an unmodified roll of 6, you improve the armor penetration characteristic. The problem with that is that we don't have many core units. Now, I'm saying this with, I haven't seen anything in the Codex, I can't say of anything else, is that Death Guard don't really have a core unit that is filled with plague weapons for ranged weapons. That's its problem. Maybe if we did, it might be more tempting. Say, for instance, you had a Havoc's unit that had a heavy weapon that was all plague weapons, and say they had the core keywords, then yeah, or like a chosen unit that could all have what are they called? You're making me forget. I'm rushing out on this one. Give me a second. Basically, the Assault 2 weapon that Plague Marines have. What's the Blight Launcher?
Is that the Blight Launcher? Yeah.
If you had that on every single model in a unit, this would actually be okay. But it's only improving the AP by 1. If it was like AP by 1, or more importantly, let's say even the AP by, made it AP minus 4, that to me would be acceptable. But AP minus 1 for a character of this size, not very good.
Very underwhelming then, as you said.
Yes, so that's the order on that one. What else? I can discuss the Blight Bombardment. So Blight Bombardment this is a difficult one. So they've tried to improve Blight Bombardment in the essence that you go, yeah, you can cause mortal wounds because they activate on a 2+, but they only activate after a turn. So basically, similar to the way you did it before, you put on a point in the map and you go, that's going to receive a bombardment. The problem is now, your opponent should, if I'm right, get a whole turn to move away from that point.
Really?
And it costs, yep. And it means you will hit it's basically at the start, you activate it in your command phase, and then you do the damage at the next command phase. So your opponent will just move away. So you might be able to disrupt, for instance, if your opponent was playing Imperial Fists and they hunkered down, you're going to force that whole player to move away from them. Otherwise, they're going to suffer a lot of mortal wounds. But in this edition, castling is not a thing. It very rarely happens. And the fact that it's also 3 command points, 2 if your Warlord is a Lord of Virulence. I mean, I'll reveal my full thoughts on this when we do a preview, which will be later on. But yeah, in terms of the preview, I think they've made a bit of a mistake in this one. They marked it as this guy was going to make artillery better, so everyone went, it's going to help Plague Burst Crawlers, and it could have easily, by allowing some kind of benefit to Plague Burst Crawlers from the preview, it does not.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
And that's a major mistake.
Yeah. Well, just again, as we've kind of highlighted, there is a preview coming on Saturday morning of the Death Guard, which Ross is kindly going to be showcasing for you all, the Death Guard Codex. But yeah, I just wanted to pose that one to you, Ross, because I know obviously you're a resident Death Guard player. If the thumbnail and pictures in this podcast doesn't give it away.
Yes, so, I can't give any more than that. Yeah, I have to be careful.
No, that's good. Well done, thank you.
Things, and just discussing what the article says. And so far, that article, people are annoyed, and they've got a right to be, because it was marketed as something very different.
So guys, that's just some of the weekly updates from the community. Again, put your comments, even if you're watching the replay, down below what you thought about them. And we want to hear your thoughts. I'm really interested to see what people think of the Night Lord Terminator designs, because I'm actually astounded how good they look. So much so, I'm annoyed I don't have a single Night Lord model, and I think that's criminal. But we can always resolve that in time. So
I got the power armor one for an HQ, and it's awesome. What more do you want? Terminators, apparently.
Conrad's
not going to happen.
I know, I'm well aware. Okay.
Kind of spoiler. No, well, he's kind of not here at the moment.
Don't give that away. People are reading the books, Ross.
Yeah, true. Oh.
Don't believe anything Ross says. He's just
Hey, I
joshing.
play 40k, not 30k. I know the lore.
So moving on to the last section, just winding the podcast up, guys. And again, thank you for those who joined us this evening and giving us your thoughts and your comments. But we always like to finish off these podcasts now with a little bit of normality. So last week we were talking about TV shows that we're all watching. Let's change it up a little bit. Stuart, what video games you playing this week? What are you into? What are you enjoying?
Oh, I re-downloaded Deathwing.
Yes, I'm well aware last night you made a point about it. Did you play it?
And me and you were playing Vermintide 2, which is still a really good game.
Yeah, I feel it's terrible. I've never played that before, and my god, I had so much fun last night. So much fun that I might buy an Age of Sigmar army. That's how good the game was.
You almost bought an elf, like an elves or whatever they're called army. You told me the other day. So that's 2 armies you almost bought for Age of Sigmar.
I'm going through phases. I don't know why. And then I want a Skaven army as well.
I was about to say you want a Skaven army. I know your heart always desires Skaven.
Yeah, Skaven's number 1.
And that is the correct army to for your heart on, because I had about 14,000 points when I was in about 6th or 7th ed.
Oh, Skaven's perfect. Well then, if you like Skaven, Rob, you need to get Vermintide. It's just the perfect game.
No, it's like the Skaven in it were pretty brutal, but the Chaos, jeez.
Yeah, they're good. So
right, run away now. Run away fast.
So you're playing your Vermintide this week, when you've got Deathwing. Is Space Hulk Deathwing? Sorry, is the correct name, I believe. That's coming up.
Deathwing, but like I just saw in the chat somebody's at Darktide is like, I can't wait for that game.
Yeah, Darktide looks good.
It looks amazing. But no, I think besides that was it. If I played, I'm downloading oh, that's terrible. What the name of it is Martyrs.
Inquisitor Martyrs.
Yeah, that's it. Bang. Yeah.
Well, I think it's something I might bring to the channel, a wee playthrough.
Yeah, because it's Warhammer Diablo, and I've played it before. I played it, but it was quite buggy at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping by now. Well, it's been a while. It's been out now, but by now that like all the bugs have been fixed, so I'll be able to get a good run of it. Okay,
perfect. Rob,
I haven't played any of these games.
You're missing out, Ross. But we'll come to you in a wee sec. Don't you worry about it.
You'll put Inquisitor Martyrs. You'll like.
Rob, have you even found time to play any games this week? I've been really busy.
Not really, no. Been doing a bit of old school Need for Speed, because that's always good to race cars around the city and run away from the police and all that lot. But as a proper gaming session as it is, I really have not had time. I've been painting more Necrons that I can throw a stick at, which is always good. And painting up a few other bits and pieces for the other armies that hopefully will come to the channel soon enough. But yeah, my workload is just ridiculous at the moment. So sadly, I'm the boring one and not being able to do anything.
A time will come. You know, I'd say, I know if we get the chance, we should get you involved in Inquisitor Martyrs, because I think it's a game you might enjoy. I think you played Diablo, didn't you?
Yeah, I do have it. And I've played a couple of missions with Inquisitor Master. I've actually got Mechanicus on the PS4 as well.
Never tried that. Never tried it.
It was sort of turn-based AdMech versus Necron. Done a couple of missions. It just takes a long time to sort of get into it more than anything. So it's always that, but at the moment it's just next to no time at all. I'm waiting for Diablo 4 to come out.
Yes.
Good man. Don't know if it's this year, next year, or what, but that's going to be the big game. As soon as that's released, I'm going to be on it. Like I was going to say something then, but it's not for. Not
it's all right. We know what you meant.
Yep. Yeah. So that's my main game. What my dad used to play, Diablo, and WoW. constantly. So been brought up on them, and Diablo is like one of my most favourite games of all time. So yeah, see what they do on that.
Perfect.
I've not played it on the mobile version yet, but that won't happen.
Yeah, I think you can skip past that.
Yes, very much so.
Wow.
Ross,
No, it's Diablo, not WoW. Come on.
Okay.
What about yourself, Ross? Have you had a chance to play anything? I know you're pretty busy with your channel updates for painting, but have you found time to play any games?
No. The answer, I'm still working through, like last week, still working through South Park. I spent, I think, was it 4 or 5 hours painting Aquillas onto all the Astra, because I've avoided all the Aquillas on my Astra tanks, and then I had like a day off and I hadn't prepped any models. I was like, I'm just going to get the Aquillas done, and I hated myself for it. It was like Saturday night or something, because obviously we can't do anything. I was like, I haven't prepped anything for any more to do. I was like, I'll just paint the Aquillas tonight, and it just, my skull evaporated. I've got, do you guys have phones?
Sorry,
Just saw that. That's that. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, Blizzard memories. I wasn't there at that one, but I know someone who was. And yeah, I haven't had a chance. I've just been painting, man. I've got 2 more Astra vehicles to do, and then I'm sort of happy where I am. So I'm just trying to get through that on top of writing reviews. No games, but I'm gonna be. I actually ordered Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Oh.
And it should have arrived today, but it didn't. And I was going to play that because I was going to play that on an Xbox. Going back 14 years game, so nothing modern.
No, Ross, Morrowind, go back that far.
I tried that, but it killed my PC.
What?
Time to buy a new PC.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Well, I think if I've been playing games, Stuart knows what I've been playing. Played most stuff with him this week. However, I recently got into Deep Rock Galactic,
Such a good game.
which I've never played before until recently. Nothing better than being a space dwarf drilling holes and living your Starship Trooper's best life by killing bugs all day long in caves. Not gonna lie, it's pretty satisfying. And I'd imagine the more I play it, I'm gonna want to buy a dwarf army. But that's just the way of things. My life goes. But yeah. Good chance to get a chance of gaming. And Ross, if you can get a chance of Oblivion, we hope forward to give us a wee update on how you're getting on. I've told you before I didn't enjoy that game, but I know a lot of people who absolutely loved it.
So since November, just to give you an update on that, since November, 100%ed Fallout 4, Fallout 3, Skyrim, and I'm 1 achievement off in New Vegas. So I'm just been like on a Bethesda binge. So the last one I'm going for is Oblivion.
You're going on a Bethesda binge.
Yeah.
You need to get yourself Game Pass. You really do.
Yeah, I do, but Oblivion isn't on it.
Oh, neither it is. You're right.
It isn't, so I've got Game Pass, but yeah, I've just been on Bethesda binge, and then it'll probably be Dishonored after that.
1 or 2, Ross. Have you not played the first one?
I did the first one. I got the no one ever saw me in the entire game achievement. I didn't kill anyone, but there's a few other bits I need to get. Then I've not played 2 at all. So, I'm just going through Bethesda, guys. I'm getting it done. I'll get it done after I paint a lot of models. And I know, David, you've got a pile of models. As soon as I finish Astra, I know you have a pile of models waiting for me.
Welcome to my world.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely don't have a pile of models. It's more like a truckload.
It's like it's almost like an Indomitus box.
Imagine that.
I painted the Space Wolves in them, and then you're like, can you not finish it? I'll get to them, David. I will. I promise.
There's a lesson learned there, Ross. Don't do such a good job.
Try 2 Indomitus boxes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to patience.
Technically 2.5, but yeah, it's just mental.
Right, guys. Well, that brings an end to this week's podcast. It's been fun as always. It's actually nice to have a full house as well this week.
Hooray!
So, and it just proves that we are still all alive. For those who ask in the chat.
I won't go that far, but yeah.
So again, the guys, will be a replay on this on the channel. Put your comments, etc., in the comment section below, and we'll always try and get back to it. Special thanks to Ross for moderating the chat today, for keeping on top of all the questions. Obviously, as well, comment, share, like, and subscribe, guys. We're going to try and keep this up as weekly as we can. Obviously, with lockdown permitting, we've got some challenges ahead, but we're going to try and commit to doing as many of these as we possibly can, guys. A new topic every week. And you know what? From me, I'd like to say thanks very much for listening. Thanks for joining us. Guys, you want to say your thanks?
All good, thank you very much.
Cheers. Cheers, everyone. Safe.
Because I'm going to end this podcast before a single Ultramarines comment comes in today. So, guys, take care, stay safe.
Power Smurf.
We'll see you all on another one of our podcasts.